Hello everybody and welcome back, and if you're new to the channel, my name's Jase and this channel is about our journey to become more self-sufficient. And before we get started, I'd just like to thank everybody for their kind comments regarding my hand, and it seems okay. I've got to go back on Thursday just to get it checked up and maybe have the stitches out, etc. But today's video is the first veg plot tour of the year, and it must be maybe October since I last did a veg plot tour. So I've got quite a few things coming on now, so I'll show you around, show you what we've got growing, what seedlings we've got coming on, and we'll start where you are now, in that corner. So in this area of the plot we have some herbs growing in pots. Some are from last year, so this apple mint is from last year, and the thyme and the sage, that's all from last year, and the parsley in this pot here. Some recent additions are this chicory and the chamomile and the rosemary. So I'm hoping to improve the herb varieties that we have this year. There's also a sorrel in the pot just behind me there. In these big black pots, these are 40-litre trugs, and these 8 here, the 2 rows of 4, they are Charlotte second early potatoes. Nothing showing yet. They were planted probably 2-3 weeks ago, and they can't be very far away now. In fact, maybe there's one just starting to push up through the soil there. Yeah, there is. Just starting to come through. And I think there's perhaps one in this pot as well. Yeah. So they are just starting to show. Now, obviously, that's a dangerous time of the year because potatoes suffer very badly from frost. So important now that I keep my eye on the forecast, and if we are going to get any cold nights, that I put a tarp over these just to protect them from that frost. In the pots that are lower down, there's 5 pots there, and they are Lady Crystal early potatoes, first early, and there's also some of those starting to come through. And they were all the Charlotte and the Lady Crystal were put in the pots at the same time. The first 8 here, the Charlotte, are part of an experiment that I'm doing where I'm testing different fertilizers against each other. The Lady Crystal, some of those are part of an experiment and some aren't, but we're going to have a lot of new potatoes come June, July, and we do like salad potatoes. So moving along to the first 2 pallet collar beds. These are Monge 2 peas, which I started in pots in the house in February, suffering a bit from slug damage at the moment, and I do have slug traps out, and there are quite a few in there, but you can never stop them all getting to your plants, and we did have quite a good live last night on slugs, and everybody's suffering the same. And this year, because this spring it's warm and wet, very wet, and of course that's perfect conditions for slugs to reproduce and be very active, and if they're active they're hungry. So when there isn't a lot on the ground for them to eat at this time of the year, the minute you put out any young plants, they're just going to make a beeline for them. I did sow broad beans direct into these 2 beds, and I think a mouse or a rat has come along and got most of them, but there is one coming up here, and just looking at that bed over there, it looks like there's another one coming up. So might get a few come up that have been sown direct, but I have sown some more in pots as a backup as well. So moving along to the next 2 pallet collar beds. In this bed over here we've got stir-on onions from sets, and I always do a mixture of seed and sets, purely because if the seeds fail for some reason, I do have a backup. This year we're going to have a lot of onions, I think, if it all goes to plan, because I sowed 2 packets of Elsa Craig and we've had a fairly good germination and growth on those, and we've got 50 stir-on. Very nice onion, the stir-on, grew them last year, really like them. And then in this bed we've got Red Baron, again from sets. Now onion sets do tend to bolt more than seeds because the onion is already in its 2nd year of growth, but they are a backup, and if we see any that bolts then we take them straight away and eat them. Doesn't matter what size they are, we'll eat them. And you can eat the greens as well, you don't have to just eat the bulb. So there's quite a few coming up in here now. I think nearly all of them have started to shoot, so it could be a good year for onions. We've eaten all of last year's onions now, so I wanted to grow more this year. This year's kind of strategy is to grow more of the staples, so onions, carrots, parsnips, potatoes, and the brassicas, and then fill in any spaces that are left with stuff that we wouldn't necessarily go and buy from a supermarket. So things like kohlrabi and chard, that sort of stuff, and try and get some extras in, have a bit of a mixture, but focus more on the staples that grow well, we've grown before in this ground, and that we really enjoy. So a few weeks ago in this bed I sowed early Nantes carrots, and I did 3 rows here, and they are now starting to come up. We've got a few seedlings starting to appear, and I've had them covered with a compost bag, black side facing up, just to heat the soil a bit more and help with the germination. But there are now signs that they're coming up, so I expect within the next week that we will have some quite evident seedling rows here, and once that happens I'll start to sow another 2 or 3 rows and just successionally sow until all of this bed and half of the next bed is full of carrots. There are a few weeds coming up. There's a nettle there, that looks like a dandelion over there, right where I sowed a row of carrots, but I'll have to dig it out and then sow a few more seeds, and hopefully they'll just catch up with the rest of them. And in the same bed as the carrots, because I haven't got carrots sown at this end of the bed yet, I'm making use of the space, and I've got a couple of rows of radishes, because these will be grown, harvested and eaten long before I get to sow carrots in this area. So we've got a row of white radish, icicle, very nice, grow quite long, white radishes, and we've got a row of Vienna, which are like a small red ball radish. And it's going to be probably another 3 weeks or month even before I get to sowing carrots in this area, so these will be gone by that time. And so in the last 2 pallet collar beds are leeks, and these were sown from seed back in February, just in a seed tray, and I put them out about a week ago. Still quite small, most of them have got 2 leaves, and we've got 2 different beds. This one is my homemade compost, that one has been topped off with some spent shop bought compost that I grew potatoes in last year, and they'll just be left here. Other than weeding and watering if it gets really dry, I doubt I'll do anything with these. They'll just be left until they get to sort of marker pen thickness, and then we'll harvest them. Last year we let them go too far and they were really woody, almost inedible even after cooking. The bases of them were really tough, so conscious effort this year to harvest them earlier and use them straight away, or clean them up and freeze them. Now in this area I've sown parsnips direct, white gem variety. Nothing showing that I can see at the moment, but it was only about 3 weeks ago, and parsnips are notoriously slow at germinating and bad at germinating. So there was 3 seeds went into each sowing position, so hopefully we'll get at least one. But the plan by the end of the summer is, or in the next couple of months, that all of this half of this bed and all of this bed will be sown with parsnips. And we really enjoy parsnips, and the parsnips that we're eating now from last year are absolutely amazing. They're so sweet because they were grown through the winter and harvested after some frosts, and that's the secret. Let them get frozen and it turns the starch in the root to sugar, and they are really sweet after that. Yeah, it is very wet. This end of the garden stays wet. It's the lowest part of the garden. It's where the compost bays are, and this bay is really a mixture of all of the stuff that wasn't properly composted from all of the other bays last year. So it's kind of a mixture of everything, and it's just going to sit here really all summer until it finishes doing what it's going to do. This bay we're currently filling with greens and browns, and it's about half full, so won't be very long now. We're cutting the grass and stuff again before this is full. Then it will be closed down and left for a few months until it cools down, and it will get turned into that bay there, and then this one will be turned into this one, and then we'll start filling this one. We do have 2 more bays at the end there. One is currently with the remainder of last year's homemade compost, and the other one has just got some topsoil in it. So we did quite well last year. We made about 2.5 ton of compost, so that's all been spread out on the beds, and hopefully will give us some good nutritious soil for our crops to grow in. Now in this corner, this is probably the wettest part of the garden. So we have a plum tree right in the corner there, and that's partly because we want to try and create some privacy from houses that have been built next door. We also want the fruit, and we're hoping that with it being in a nice damp environment, it's going to hopefully dry this area out a little bit as well, with it taking so much moisture. Same with the rhubarb, and this is really coming on now. Lots of stems coming up, and this was only planted here last year. It was part of another rhubarb plant that is up the other end of this bed, and I divided the crown and put half of it here, and it's really doing well. In here we've got 2 pots of Jerusalem artichokes, and nothing showing yet that I can see, but again I've planted them here to try and fill this corner in as they grow tall with their big yellow flowers, and create a bit of privacy. But they're in pots because Jerusalem artichokes will take over if they're left in the ground, so keeping them confined, and come the autumn, come the winter, hopefully we'll have some Jerusalem artichokes to harvest. So in the bed on the left, this is now full of our main crop, potatoes. So from the rhubarb up to about this point, is pink fir apple, and from this piece of wood on the ground to the apple tree is King Edward, and hopefully that will supply us a good main crop of potatoes to store through the winter. Under the fleece are onions, the Ailsa Craig onions that I grew from seed, and the fleece isn't really there to protect them from the frost so much as the birds. They do have a habit of coming down and pulling them out, so it's there for that reason. And also, when plants are very small, if you can protect them from the wind a bit, any cold wind or any cooler temperatures, it does help them to get established and to grow on a bit quicker. This end of the potato bed, we've got the apple tree, and I can't remember the variety, but it's an eating apple. They're very nice. We did have a few small ones last year, but we've got a lot more blossom this year, so hopefully have a bit better harvest. We've got the rhubarb that I was talking about, so this is the other half of the crown that I split, and growing like mad. And down here we've got some onions that I found just around the garden that have grown through the winter, and these are Stuttgart, I believe, that I sowed from seed last summer, and I'm just going to leave them and see what happens. And if they go to seed, there's quite a few there, so if they flower, maybe they will pollinate, and maybe we can save the seed. I don't know, it's just an experiment. It's a very small area that they're taking up, so I've got no problem just leaving them there. Now, in this area of the garden, I call this the propagation area, because that is fastly what it's become, with this cold frame that I built and some storage shelves down here from old clochers and things like that. So we've got the trays that are now containing broad bean seeds. Hopefully these will come on in the next week or so. We've got some spare Ailsa Craig onions, which I'm just keeping going in this pot for now, just in case I do need to fill any little spaces in the bed, and if not, we'll just eat them as they are. These are spare Musselburgh leeks, again just holding on to them for now to fill in any spaces if need be. And then in the cold frame itself there are brassicas and lettuce, and what I'll do is I'll get the camera and I'll show you what we've got in there. So at this end we've got Calibos red cabbage and cauliflower, and they're coming along quite nicely. These are iceberg lettuce, and then in this tray we've got pak choy over at the back here. We've got 2 rows of pak choy, we've got a row of chard down the middle, and then we've got 2 rows of we've got 2 rows of chard, and then we've got a row of kohlrabi. And these all really need potting on, but I just need another week or so for my hand to improve, and then I can perhaps tackle that job. These are kale. I think there's another couple of lettuce down there as well. And then all of these are calabrese, getting a bit leggy, but that's absolutely fine. Once I pot them on or plant them out, I can plant them deeper, and for another week while my hand recovers, that's not going to be an issue. And then in here we have got spinach, so there's a spinach, and we've got some more calabrese. So only really the calabrese in here that is going a bit leggy. Everything else seems to be okay, and all looking very healthy. Now, I know I said that the bed over there was full of our main crop potatoes, but this area is going to be full as well. We've got a pot of King Edward at the back and a pot of pink fir apple here at the front, and there is another 4 pots for me to plant yet, and they will go into this area. They will all be pink fir apple, and I'm doing a mixture because, one, I don't have enough pots to plant them all into pots because I've already done so many pots of new potatoes, early potatoes. But also I like to split it so that my main crop, some are in the ground, because trying to keep them hydrated through the summer is really quite difficult when they're in pots. So with them being in the ground in the damp part of the garden, hopefully that will help with that problem. And so in front of the shed we have got marrow fat peas, and started these February time indoors, chittered them first, brought them on and planted them out probably 3 weeks ago now, and they're coming on nicely. And I made this raised bed for them. We've got no slug damage at the moment, touch wood, and yeah, I'm really pleased with the way that they're growing. Got some Royal Sovereign strawberries in the front there, and we've got a whole bed of strawberries which is very overgrown with other plants, and I keep trying to rescue a few here and there and dot them around just to keep them going. So in the polytunnel area I have prepared this bed and this bed to take the brassicas, and got the structures set up. I've got a piece of netting coming for this side. That piece is already in place, just needs pulling over. I've weeded, although it does need doing again. The slug traps have been out for at least 6 weeks, and I've firmed the soil down. So all I'm really waiting for now is for the young plants to grow on a bit. I'm not going to put them out until I have to because of the slug problem, and so they can get a bit bigger in pots first before I put them out. In the centre here we've got Solent white garlic, and all of this is growing from cloves that I grew last year. So we harvested what we wanted and then planted the rest out, and this is the result. Now there is a bit of yellow in, but that's because they've come through the cold of the winter. But what we do have is very green, fresh growth coming from the centre of the plants. So I'm not concerned about that bit of yellow in, it's just a bit of dieback. So in the greenhouse, not a massive amount happening. On the veg front, we've got a couple of herbs. We've got some tarragon and oregano. Bought these recently. They're in here because they like the warmer temperatures. We've got some pyrocanthus cuttings that I'm hopefully bringing on and getting them to root. We've got some marigolds that have been sown in this tray, some additional cauliflowers and Savoy cabbage in this tray, nothing coming up. And these are beetroot, and I think they're starting to germinate. You can see the compost starting to lift and crack, and I keep watering these and they just keep drying out. So while we're here, we'll give them a bit more. So in the conservatory we've got a whole tray of tomatoes coming on, and we've got Tumbling Tom, Crimson Crush, there's a beefsteak in there, Ox Heart I think it is, and Red Cherry, and these are going to need potting on fairly soon. We've also got some more lettuce coming on in this tray, and celery and celeriac. So we've got celery on this side, and then these are the celeriac, and they're coming along okay. Again, they need pricking out, but at the moment that might be a little bit difficult. But hopefully another week and I'll be able to use my fingers a bit more. And then in here we've got cucumbers. These are Telegraph. I've sown 12 cucumbers so far this year and only 3 have come up. There's still time. I'm keeping them in the propagator, keeping them watered, so should be okay. We've got aubergines. They're very slow, not doing much really, but they have germinated. I think heat is the main issue. And we've got peppers, or chilies, sorry. So these are Tabasco, sown from seed in February. My first lot that I sowed in January really didn't do anything. They are growing, but very slowly, so I'm not certain it's going to be a very good chilly year for me, but that's okay. And we've got what we've got there, 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 6 that are looking okay. There's a couple there that really do look very weak, but that's the stuff that we've got coming on in here in the conservatory. So that's the first plot tour of the year, guys, April, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, that really helps the channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you like this sort of content, then please consider doing so. And there's various membership options below if you would like to support the channel further. So thank you very much, and I will see you next time.